let it play?
You got a cue though, right? Okay.
Okay. I want to welcome you to coming tonight to listen to Sam Andrews. My name is Renee Artman, and I'm Merrimack Township's committee woman. Frida had a previous engagement. She wanted to be here, but she had to leave. She's going to a pro-life dinner, but we have her husband, Bob, here.
Hey, Bob.
And we also have another committee woman, Jennifer Bird. She's committee woman for Gravois. I want to thank you all for coming. We had Mr. Andrews at our township in February?
It was February.
And it was to hear what he has to say and the stories about what went on in Ferguson is amazing. You know, and it's ironic that we're going through it now in another part of the country with Baltimore.
And other places.
And, yeah, New York, you know. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sam Andrews.
Hi guys, by the way, if there's something that I left out in
I'll
the
tell
township
you.
meeting that you like, make sure you remind me, because I'm sure I'll just tweak my memory a little. Okay, I want to start with Nixon's promise to the people of St. Louis County and Ferguson. Let's go ahead and roll that.
County Executive Charlie Dooley, and Missouri Director of Public Safety Dan Isom. Later this evening, the St. Louis County Prosecutor will announce the grand jury's decision. While none of us knows what that will be, our shared hope and expectation is that regardless of the decision, people on all sides show tolerance, mutual respect, and restraint. Earlier today, I visited with some folks in Ferguson, and it's understandable that, like the rest of us, they are on edge waiting for a decision. But they're doing their best to go about their daily lives, conduct their business, and support one another and their community. I also spoke with a number of faith leaders late this afternoon who offered their prayers for peace and safety. Together, we are all focused on making sure the necessary resources are at hand to protect lives, protect property, and protect free speech.
That's good. Okay, so there's the promise from our governor. I was actually impressed when I heard him say this, because we institute government among people for the purpose of protecting lives, protecting liberty, and protecting property. Anything that government does outside of those three things is outside the bounds of why our founding fathers instituted government. So it's important that we understand that. It's important that we understand that Nixon understood that. Okay, now can we go to the film video? With the sound?
Hey, Sam,
Yes.
will you at some point in time explain how you got into Oath Keepers
Sure.
and your background
Sure.
and that?
As soon as I get done with the promise, I'm going to go right there. Okay. So I'm a member of Oath Keepers. An Oath Keeper is someone who's at the opposite end of the spectrum of an order taker. Anyone who's old enough to remember the Nuremberg trials and the Nazi criminals that were tried for atrocities against human beings can remember the defense that some of the Germans put forth in their trials. I was ordered to execute those people. I was ordered to gas those people. I was ordered to do experiments on those people. And so an order taker is someone who claims, I have no moral culpability because I have been ordered by an authoritative power to do evil. That is what an order taker is. And at this end of morality, you have order takers. And we have a lot of order takers in St. Louis, I'll tell you that. I had no idea how many until Ferguson, but now I know. At the other end of the spectrum, you have oath keepers. You have American men and women who are current serving military, current serving police officers, retired military, retired police officers, firefighters current serving, intelligence officers currently serving and retired. There's a number of people that belong to the Oath Keepers, and the Oath Keepers organization is an organization that is apolitical. We are people of all races. We are people of all political parties that care about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we are trying to get the word out that people that are in government, that are current serving, military, police, firefighters, politicians, need to uphold their oath. And that oath is the oath that they took when they were sworn in or commissioned. And that oath says to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, most veterans that are in this room would understand that oath, particularly as it pertains to enemies of the Constitution that are foreign. When I first read the oath as a child, I never imagined that I would be trying to impress upon people the necessity to keep your oath as it pertains to domestic enemies of the Constitution. And that's where we're at right now in this country. We've got a whole bunch of enemies to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights right here in St. Louis, Missouri, and all over the country. It's not just here, it's everywhere. Now, I'm going to put forth a proposal to you, and I would ask that you grant me some mercy and grace for half an hour, and I will make the case. But we have a violence problem in our urban communities. We have a violence problem that's exacerbated by factors including no fathers raising children and a lack of jobs and a poor economy and other contributing indicators. But we do have a violence problem. Whatever those contributing indicators are, we have a huge violence problem in our urban communities. It has nothing to do with race. We have a violence problem in our law enforcement agencies and in our military. And it has nothing to do with race. And in the law enforcement arena, that violence problem is exacerbated by a code of silence problem. Officers see other officers doing things that are illegal, unconstitutional, unwarranted, and they do this. Now, when you combine the violence problem in our urban communities with the violence problem in our law enforcement agencies, and that's not about race either, by the way, and the media wants to make it about race. The Department of Justice wants to make it about race. They have crawled up Ferguson's police department with a microscope and claim that they are horrible, that they do all these things wrong, and it's because they have too many white police officers. Well, explain to me what happened in Baltimore the other day. Because they're run by a black mayor, a black police chief, and they have 62% black officers. Yet they had the same exact problem in Baltimore as we had in Ferguson over Thanksgiving. So anyone who tells you it's about race is telling you a lie. Don't believe it. Okay, let's go to the next step. Yes.
17 stores vandalized and burned to the ground. Natalie DuBose is the owner of Natalie's Cakes and More. Her store was broken into and looted. I spoke to her a few days after.
I didn't have an extra savings or extra money to replace everything that was destroyed.
Her story caught the attention of Sam Andrews, who was watching the news at home 40 miles away. Andrews immediately came to Ferguson and put out a call online for more volunteers like himself. Please grab your gear and start rolling toward Ferguson.
They've been here. I hear them upstairs on the roof, and I feel that much more secure.
A lot of people who live here will drive by, they'll see a tall white guy holding a gun. How do you think that may make some of the people here feel?
They were calling our members the KKK, they were calling us the police, they were saying F the police to us, and we kept explaining to them, we're not the police, we love you all, we're here to defend your rights.
While the other... unrest has died down since last week, Andrews and his fellow volunteers said they will continue to protect the bake shop as well as this nearby dentist office.
I don't know where they came from, but I just thank God they showed up. We wouldn't be standing here working today. We wouldn't have a building.
Which is why some are embracing the presence of these.
Okay. So there you heard two people that my team of men and women protected in Ferguson. Now, the men and women that were in Ferguson that were oath keepers, and some were not oath keepers, they were veterans or they were active military, or they were police officers that were Class 1 commissioned police officers in the state of Missouri that came with my group to protect these people. It was amazing that the media put out this lie that we were a bunch of untrained, radical, right-wing knuckleheads. So who were the oath keepers that were in Ferguson? Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. We had 7 commissioned police officers. We had special forces guys from the Army. We had some Navy SEALs. We had some MARSOC Marines. We had Army reservists. The same people that Nixon supposedly called to Ferguson but didn't show up. We had some of those guys too. We had Lebanese men. We had Hispanic people. We had Italian, German, French, African American, Scottish. So we were a cross-section racially as oath keepers, guarding a cross-section of Ferguson racially. We had African American people living in apartments on the 2nd floor. We had a Chinese restaurant at the north end of one of our buildings. At the south end, we had an Asian woman. In between, about 110 yards south of there. And in between, we had an African American baker who you saw. We had a white dentist. We had another orthodontist who's in a biracial marriage that worked out of that dentist's office. And so, as you can see, we had Asian people living in apartments upstairs. We had a white man living in apartments upstairs. And so we were a cross-section of America guarding a cross-section of America. There's no racists in Oath Keepers. If we find a racist in Oath Keepers, we kick them out. There are people of all political persuasions, libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, independents. And we all come together as a group when it's necessary to defend life, liberty, and property, which is what Nixon didn't do. Did you go to Karaman's if you have it?
I don't.
Some of them. Okay. Do you have Fox News? Fox News in it?
It's on the screen.
Okay. Let's go to Nixon's lies.
Which one?
You dropped the ball by not sitting in the elevator. Two things. First of all, they were guarded in Ferguson. Everybody knows that. They were guarding command posts. They were at other locations in Ferguson. What I'm saying,
that man bald-faced lied to a group of 30 reporters. I was there in Ferguson. There was no National Guard there Monday night. There was no National Guard there Tuesday night. When the National Guard showed up, the violence was over. The National Guard showed up, and keep in mind, I'm 100 yards from the police station on South Forest, and on a rooftop, I see everything for miles. We got binoculars that, are twice the size of what you would buy in a sporting goods store. We have cameras and scopes, spotting scopes, things that can see incredible detail a mile away. We've got night vision, thermal sights. Like I said, we see everything. We see people crawling through the bushes from 300, 500 yards away. There were no National Guard in Ferguson Monday night. That is a bald-faced lie. There were a handful of National Guard. I think we saw 3 Humvees in Ferguson on Tuesday night. The National Guard did not show up in any numbers until Wednesday night at midnight. The violence was over. The majority of the burning was Monday and Tuesday night. And there was no National Guard. Where was the National Guard? They were at the airport being held up. They were downtown. They were in Clayton. Everyone knew ground zero for the violence was Ferguson, Missouri. But a politician who would tell you that there were National Guard there to protect, what was his promise? Life, liberty, free speech and property, right? Well, if your idea of protecting property, Governor Nixon, is over 24 buildings burned to the ground, over 500 businesses damaged and destroyed, and over 200 businesses looted, I don't know how to help you. If that's the idea of protecting property from our government officials, why do we have government officials? That's insane. That's not protecting anything. That's letting the criminals run wild for 48 hours and then bringing the National Guard in and making an attempt to establish order. By the way, the National Guard, my son's in the National Guard. He just got out a few weeks ago, but he's on the 2-year ready reserve. They had no ammunition in their rifles. They had no magazine. What Governor Nixon is guilty of, beyond any doubt, is criminal endangerment of human life. Because he put National Guard in a violent zone with no ammunition, no ability to defend themselves. He put policemen in a static line in front of the police station with a white building behind them, and then put spotlights on his own men. So that if you're 100 yards away with a handgun and iron sights at midnight, you could pop a few rounds off and shoot some officers. This is his idea of protection. 7 police officers came into my office after those 2 officers were shot and said, "I'm done, I'm out, I'm retiring." And what the people don't know, because the media has hidden this, including Jamie Allman, what the media doesn't know is that policemen are retiring. They're all looking, when can I get out? Is it worth the risk? Can I get out now? How much of my pension will I have if I leave right now? Okay, I better stay a few more months. Were you an officer?
He is, he's retired.
So did it affect your decision on when to retire?
No. If riots break out, I think it was a very cowardly move.
Okay, so you're going to stay until the violence
If
is
something
sort of
else
passed.
breaks out, I would stay.
Okay, great. Well, I admire that. But here's what a lot of people don't know and what the media is not telling you. And I've heard this directly from police chiefs, police officers, lieutenants, white shirts, sergeants, patrolmen on the ground, highway patrol, have all told me the same exact thing. And these guys don't even know each other. But they've all told me that the Department of Justice got police officers together into a meeting and established rules of engagement. And they did this on an almost daily basis. And they ordered the police officers to not arrest looters and arsonists. When's the last time you heard that on television media? And I heard it again just 2 weeks ago. I was delivering ammunition down at Fort Leonard Wood, and a highway patrolman pulled over. Didn't pull me over. I was already over on the side of the road with a flat tire. And he pulled behind me to protect me from the traffic. And he got out and we talked for a little while. I said, "Didn't I see you in Ferguson?" He said, "Yeah." And he told me all about it. Direct orders from the federal government to not do what the taxpayers paid them to do. Now, what did Nixon spend? He spent over $15 million to protect life, liberty, and free speech, or life, liberty, and property, right? St. Louis County taxpayers paid over $6.5 million just in overtime. By the way, the tab is still running. So $21 million to allow hundreds of buildings to be damaged, and over $60 million now in damage and still counting. And a lot of these small business people can't come back because they can no longer get insurance for their business. And no one will lease them the space if they're not insured. Now, what were the Democrats saying to us in Ferguson? The Democrat leadership were saying that they don't like Nixon. And they were saying, you guys, you need to look at the 2012 development plan for Ferguson. Look very closely at the 2012 development plan, because some higher-ups are very frustrated that the small businesses in Ferguson have been thriving and they haven't been able to push them out. So I looked at it. I looked at the 2012 Ferguson development plan on West Florissant and South Florissant. And I started plotting where all of the burnt buildings were. And every single one of those buildings fell within the development zone. What are the odds? 70 buildings lit on fire and every one of them in the development zone.
Whose development plan is it?
I believe the city.
The city of Ferguson.
City of Ferguson. Yeah.
Same. Tell a story about when you were on the roof with the White House across the street.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so let's go to the slides, and let's talk a little bit about the facts. See, every human being has God-given rights. You're entitled to your own opinion. You're entitled to your own behavior as long as you don't hurt someone else. These are universal moral concepts. But what you have to realize is, even though you and I are each entitled to our own opinion, and it's okay if it's different, we are not, as a group of people in this room, entitled to our own set of facts. We share the facts. We can have our own opinion about the facts, but we share the facts. You can't change the facts. So let's talk a little bit about oath keepers. We want people to honor their oath and to know as a retired veteran or police officer that your oath never expires. And we want to expose unconstitutional acts. And that means the code of silence has to be driven from the law enforcement culture. Now, difficult, right? Because if you say to the higher ups, your sergeant or lieutenant, hey, this guy screwed up, he didn't do it right, then your reputation as an officer, oh, he's a rat. And you'll be ostracized by your law enforcement community. But it's interesting, if you give police officers protection like we do our military, I think you can solve this problem. Because in the military, if you're given an illegal order, and you execute that illegal order, not only are you going to be in trouble, you're going to be prosecuted. Okay? If you follow that illegal order, you will go to jail. Okay? But in our law enforcement culture, in Missouri particularly, every law enforcement officer that I know of in the state of Missouri is an at-will employee. Which means that a culture has developed where if you're given an illegal order and you follow that order, you're in good graces with your boss. If you refuse an illegal order, you can be fired for no reason, you will be blacklisted so none of the other departments want to hire you, and financially your family is in jeopardy at this point. Because you've got to go find a new trade at the drop of a hat. And what we really need in Missouri is a law that not only protects police officers so that they can't be punished if they refuse an unlawful order, but we need legislation that protects police chiefs and sheriffs. So when what happened in Ferguson, where the feds step in through a Democratic governor, because we've got a Democratic Department of Justice, and they tell the governor, you're going to do this, and the governor tells the highway patrol and tells all the other police officers in the county, you guys are going to do this, and that doesn't protect the people, the sheriff or the police chief has some protection, he has some cover. He can look at the governor and say, that won't protect the people that I am sworn to defend. I will not follow that order. And what we really need is a law in the state of Missouri that says the federal government cannot influence any civil unrest situation unless the governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, 2/3 of the House, and 2/3 of the Senate all want the feds involved. And at what level? Once we do that in this state, these problems like Ferguson burning to the ground and small businesses being destroyed and business women, that problem will go away. But when you have the Department of Justice who has no skin in the game relative to the health and well-being of the people in Ferguson, they have a national agenda. When the feds come in and thumb policy down through a like-party executive as governor, and then that policy gets pushed down to the level of the street cop, we have big problems. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, here's my Thanksgiving. You ever had a family get together on holidays and people show up you didn't even invite? It was kind of like that. All right, let's go. Okay, so here's a St. Louis County police car being burnt to the ground, destroyed. Now, Chief Belmer of St. Louis County, the #1 officer in St. Louis County, told his media person to tell the media that they needed to throw us out of Ferguson because we didn't have a security license. And he couldn't verify the integrity and professionalism of my men. If you knew how funny that was, you'd be laughing right now. Okay, so I bring in Navy SEALs, I bring in SOTIC Army snipers, special operations guys, I bring in MARSOC Marines that guard nuclear submarines and other things like that. I bring in an Air Force JTAC with 23 years experience. Okay, this is a guy who coordinates the field of battle, secures whole towns with air power. He's actually the flight controller. He's the air traffic controller. He controls everything that flies into that zone. The ultimate multitasker in the military. So I bring this quality of people into Ferguson. And what Belmer tried to sell to the St. Louis people was that to really be qualified to conduct a security operation, that we needed to have 16 hours of St. Louis County mall cop training. That the 27 years as a MARSOC Marine wasn't enough to run a security operation. That we needed the 16 hours of mall cop training so we could wear a security uniform. The insanity of that is beyond all measure. I'd love to debate him on that publicly. But he will never do it because he's embarrassed himself. He wants everyone to forget about that. If you can't guard your own vehicles, how are you going to protect me and my family? If you can't protect your own men and your own police cars, how are you going to protect my house or my business or my children or my wife? The number one lesson to have learned from Ferguson is that if you expect the police to protect you in a civil unrest situation, you have lost your mind. You have missed the number one lesson of Ferguson. There aren't enough policemen, there aren't enough National Guard, and there aren't enough human beings. When I was a young man, I guarded a guy named Victor Belenko. He stole a MiG-25. He was the chief test pilot for the Foxbat program. And we snuck him over. He stole a plane, landed it in Japan, a MiG-25. We got him on a commercial aircraft and brought him over here, and we hit him in Las Vegas, and we hit him in Montana, and then we hit him on a farm over in Belleville, Illinois. They had 12 KGB agents trying to kill this guy because he was the darling of the Russian Air Force, the Soviet Air Force. Now understand this. It took 3 teams of 9 men to guard that one guy 24 hours a day. So if you have 1,000 police officers in a community of 1 million people, how do you protect everybody? It's an impossible job. You're asking the police to do something that they're not capable of doing. They don't have enough men and manpower, which is why when we have problems like this, the governor activates the National Guard, because more bodies is good for force protection. You've got more eyes on, you've got all kinds of good things that happen when you can put more bodies with some skills and some weapons that can secure things. But understand, you got an inner perimeter, an outer perimeter, you've got roving patrols. There's a lot to security, and policemen aren't trained in that type of security for large areas. And to expect them to be trained in that is ridiculous with the tiny budgets we give police officers. It's not fair. Okay? I'm a huge pro-police guy. But I am as adamant against lousy policing as any human being you'll ever meet. Okay? And I've trained a lot of police officers. Mostly SWAT guys, special weapons and tactics, snipers, how to defeat thermal and infrared, and how to use fiber optics and other special techniques on SWAT operations. But I got into that for the purpose of hostage rescue. So that at the end of the day, that officer could go home to his family alive and well. And so that at the end of the day, the hostage, which is never a safe bet, but has a better chance to go home and be safe with their family. That's why I got into police training. And I've been doing it for over 20 years. But I'll tell you this, I did not get into special weapons and tactics training for police officers so that they could shoot an unarmed man in the back in Albuquerque. So that they could shoot a kid with an airsoft gun in a park in Cleveland, Ohio. So they could choke a guy out on the street for not paying a cigarette tax. So they could shoot a black man in the back for not paying child support and having a turn signal out. Okay? There are great policemen, and there are average policemen, and there are people that should not have badges. In our culture, we've got to set them up to get rid of those people that shouldn't have badges, because the 2% that are terrible at the job are ruining it for all the guys that get up every morning and say, I'm going to help my community today. Okay? And it's not a huge percentage. You know, it's not a huge percentage. Unfortunately, you got a small percentage of bad actors, but you have a large percentage that doesn't want to be seen as a rat, so the code of silence is very strong in the culture. Next slide. Okay, so we share the same set of facts. What you see here are thugs that are burning down buildings. But what you don't see is also fact. And you don't see National Guard, and you don't see police officers. Go to the next one. Okay, here's another car burning. That car back there got burned as well. Go to the next one. Okay, here's something we can see. Here is a fireman, but there's no National Guard and there's no police. Because the police were ordered to guard the firehouse and the police station. And if you've ever seen a show or been to Africa and seen what Cape Buffalo do when they feel threatened by a pride of lions, they back their butts into each other and make a big circle and put their heads and their horns out. From the roof, from a distance with no optics, that's exactly what the Ferguson police station looked like on Monday and Tuesday night. You had officers with their backs to the building, all facing out with their kit. Whether it was riot gear or weapons or whatever it was. Very, very terrible thing to do to those police officers, to put them in a static position like that and make them targets against a white backdrop of a building and then lighting the officers up so the lights are in their eyes. And the other thing, the reporters were taking their camera lights and shining it in the officer's eyes, which is insane. That blinds the officer. He can no longer protect himself, much less anyone else. So if you're media and you feel like shining your lights in an officer's eyes in a nighttime operation, don't do it. It doesn't help. You know, wait for a better opportunity to take your video and do your interview. Okay, let's go to the next one. More thugs riding around. Next one. More. This is Nixon's idea of protecting property, right? This is his promise, right? Next one. So this is where we were. This is my vantage point from the street. Okay? So the firehouse and the police station are here and here, and up this hill past this building is a large white house. We're going to get into that. Next slide. Okay, another fireman. Does anyone see a policeman or anyone in National Guard? This fireman had to cut the hose off the extinguisher and drive down the road with his fire hoses dragging behind his truck because he was taking fire from thugs. Because Governor Nixon told the police, don't go out with the firemen and protect them. The insanity of that, I do not understand. Next slide. Okay, so this is about as far away as the police got in any numbers from the firehouse, about 30 yards from the front door. And they would routinely run the protesters out of the street because they're blocking the streets. And if they threw anything, then they would get on the loudspeaker and declare that it's an unlawful protest and then tell everyone you've been given a lawful order to disperse. And if they wouldn't disperse, they'd fire tear gas and do some other things to get the crowd to break up. Next. Okay. Now, see this gal right here? See the woman? See the shape of her breasts? See the long fingernails? What the media has not shown you about Ferguson is that the African American women in this community were stealing stuff out of stores like mad. They would wait for the guys to throw bricks and cinder blocks and stuff through the windows, and they'd pile in, like in the beauty shop. Over 60 women went into the beauty shop and stole stuff off the shelves, and then they broke the window out the back, and they ran out the back, up the hill to the railroad tracks, and back to the apartments. Next slide. Here's a little looting going on. I guess Nixon's guys couldn't make it here, right? They were ordered to be somewhere else. Next one. Same thing here. Next one. I love this woman. Smartest woman I saw in Ferguson. She has a sign up that says, "Peace for Mike Brown, justice." Okay? Everybody wants justice for Mike Brown. Now, some of us have different opinions on what that should be, right? But we all want peace for Mike Brown. He has that now. He has peace now. Okay? He probably got justice too, in my opinion. But you may have a different opinion than mine. The officer that shot this man, in my opinion, did it right. You try and get in my vehicle and punch me and take my weapon, I'm not going to shoot you 5 times. I'm going to shoot you once through the head and be done with it, save the rest of the ammo. But the more interesting thing about this woman was this. Stop police killing of all races. She understands that when we have a violence problem in our inner city communities, and we have a violence problem in our law enforcement culture, and we have a code of silence, that it really isn't about race. That a policeman who has a violence problem, and not very many do, but the ones that do will kill you just as fast if you're white than they will if you're black if you don't comply with their unlawful or ridiculous statements. Sometimes they'll shoot you in the back when you run away and then pick their taser up and drop it next to your body. Unwittingly, the poor guy, there was someone in the trees with his cell phone filming his criminal activity. But that guy will be prosecuted. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's another oath keeper with Natalie, the African-American woman. Now, we really look like racists in this picture, so I want you to note that. A little sarcasm there. There are no racists in oath keepers. We love people of all color, and we want people of all races, all financial positions, and all political persuasions to have the same protections under the Constitution and the same rights. And that is what Oath Keepers is about. If the media tells you anything else, they're lying to you. Okay, next slide. Oh, another racist with an Oath Keepers hat. They're everywhere. Next slide. Okay. So this is Friday night. But I'm going to start with Thursday night. Thursday night, I've got a MARSOC Marine, a Scout Sniper, and a SOTIC Army Special Forces Sniper on the roof of the Savoy building with me. And I give the Marine, you've got rear guard duty. So when you take up a high position with weapons in a volatile environment, you are doing counter surveillance all the time. Okay? And what you're looking for is someone who's surveying you, someone who's setting up on you, or someone who's overtly threatening you. Those are the things that you look for. And any of those things fall into a category called things of tactical significance. So, you're not using your sniper rifle scope to look for those things, by the way. You're using your binoculars or your night vision or your thermal sight, and you're panning around and tracking the activity of everything around you. Now, at 7:30 on Thursday night, we saw 3 men get out of a silver Suburban in the house above the firehouse and police station across the street from South Florissant. And they're only 80 yards up the hill, and they're 93 yards to our southwest, because we're north, looking down the street to the police station, about 100 yards. So we see these 3 men get out. One of them has a drag bag. Another one pulls out a drag bag. A third guy pulls out a drag bag. And then they pull out big black gear bags. And these men are wearing tight-fit, cold Under Armour gear. And they're wearing knit black caps. And they're wearing black, tight-fit clothing made by Under Armour. Typical federal urban sniper clothing. Now, I sell drag bags, my business does. I know exactly what a drag bag for a sniper rifle looks like. As a matter of fact, I could tell you what brand they were using from my optics. That's how good a look I got at those people walking in the house. And unlike a skilled Marine sniper or a skilled Navy SEAL sniper, they walked into the house, they carried their heavy gear bags in there, about 7:35, and they walked on the porch into the house. They went up to the second story, and there were bedrooms up there. And the hall light was on, and the bedroom lights were on. And so I saw one of the guys, with black shoulder, reach in the door, and he reaches into the bedroom and turns the light off. But he left the hall light on. And he brought his gear in, and he pulled a table up to the window, and he pulled his rifle out of the bag, deployed his bipod, and then he pulled a chair up to the table and pointed his rifle right at my man on the corner of the Savoy building. At the same time, on the firehouse were 3 highway patrol snipers that got onto the roof of the firehouse, all blacked out clothing, with their .308 bolt guns, and they set them on the ledges where the step is up near the front of the building. They set them on the lower step. And so now they're on bipods with .308s pointed at my men. So we watch in the house, second bedroom window, a guy deployed there, same exact way. And then the third guy went up to the 3rd story and deployed in windows all facing north, pointing their rifles right at my men. Of course, my Marine's getting a little itchy right now. He does not like this. 3 tours of duty, Ramadi, Fallujah, places like that. He does not like this. He says, Sam, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I said, get behind the AC units. Let's light some lights up. So we took lights about 10 times the size of this, and we lit them up. Okay? So we blinded them in their positions in their windows, and then we got behind the AC units, and I called 911. And I got a real professional dispatcher on the phone and said, this is Sam Andrews. I have a security team at these addresses, at these 7 buildings. Would you please tell your federal team that deployed in this house and the highway patrol on the firehouse to stop pointing their sniper rifles at it? We're on the roofs, we're armed, but we are friendlies. Will you please relay this information to them and ask them to stop pointing their rifles at us? I figured they knew where their guys were. That was going to be the end of it, right? Wrong. So 2 minutes later, St. Louis County officers start flying into the lot of the Savoy building on the north side. Keep in mind the snipers are on the south side. It's a 3-story building, so the officers aren't in any danger. Okay? And a sergeant jumps out as the other cars are pulling in, one right after another, 9 to 12 cars in a matter of 2 minutes. The sergeant jumps out, he looks up on the roof, and I'm looking down at what's going on. He goes, hey, Sam, where are the snipers? I said, they're in the White House. Right across from the fire. And he goes, how many of them? I said, there's 3. He goes, what color were they? I said, well, 2 were black and 1 was mulatto. But they had, and when I said 2 were black, he did this and ducked behind the door of the squad car. And I said, the building's got you covered. Don't worry, relax. You're in defilation. You don't have to worry about it. And he said, how many of them were there? I said, 3. They're black. Look, they're driving a Suburban. They're probably feds. He goes, we don't have a team up there in that house. I said, oh yeah, you do. You just don't know they're there. They're probably feds. They're famous for not communicating. And he looks at the ground and hears, like this. Now the other guys are getting out of their cars and they're catching the tail end of this conversation. And the sergeant's thinking for a minute and he grabs his radio and he talks for a minute and he looks up and he goes, hey, the lieutenant's going to be here in a minute. He's going to want to see what you're looking at. I said, all right, we'll send him a ladder, send him up. Not 10 seconds later, Lieutenant Laura rolls in, jumps on the ladder, climbs up. Okay, where are the snipers? Lieutenant, they're in the White House closest to the street right there. He goes, you mean the Yellow House right there? No, Lieutenant Laura, I mean the White House closest to the street, on the hill, overlooking the firehouse and the police station. He said, you mean the Yellow House? No, Lieutenant, I mean the White House. Don't say it again. I mean the White House. You got any night vision? Yeah, here. Take the binoculars, look yourself. So he pulls up, and he looks at the house, ducks down like this behind the AC unit. He goes, I'll be right back. And he takes his cell phone out, and he runs to the west end of the Savoy building on the roof, and he gets behind another AC unit. So he's making distance so I can't hear his conversation over the phone. So he goes to the other end of the building, gets behind an AC unit to protect himself from what he saw in the house, which was a rifle pointed at him. He comes back about 40 minutes later. 40 minutes. I mean, it was like 8:20. And he comes walking up on this tar roof, stepping over the pipes. He's like, hey, Sam. He's out in the open. He's not afraid of anything now. He says, I think I got a resolution to the problem. My wife knows the woman that lives in that house. My wife talks to her all the time. She owns a barbecue business. And what you saw, or what your men saw, was her sons carrying black barbecue pots out of the Suburban and into the house to clean. Okay. Is your wife's friend white or black? Oh, she's white. Well, Lieutenant, are her sons white or black? Oh, they're white. About that time, my Marine steps up in the lieutenant's face, and now they're nose to nose on this roof. And he says, really, Lieutenant? 3 tours of duty in the box, and you don't think I can tell the difference between a barbecue pot and a drag bag carrying a sniper rifle? Really, sir? And I mean, they are nose to nose. And the only thing I can get between them are my fingers. So I go like this, and I start putting pressure on Eric, and I push him back. And I said, Eric, let me talk to Lieutenant for a minute. Look, Lieutenant, snowy, sleeting, foggy. They were backlit when they walked on the porch. Maybe my guys didn't see what they thought they saw. He goes, yeah, I think we're all good here. I said, all right. He goes, look, you guys need to get down. We're going to have to ask you some questions. Okay. Me first or you first? He says, I'll go first. So at this point, I'm wondering, How many of the other men are in on this? Because he obviously knows what's up, because he hasn't told me the truth since he's been on the roof. And that's another thing. Police officers should not lie to people who aren't in an interrogation room. I understand if you're trying to get someone to confess. But in that situation, a guy that's leading armed men, don't lie to that guy. It puts everybody in danger. So he gets halfway down the ladder. I say, hey, Lieutenant. He looks up and says, what? I said, could you do me a favor? He says, what? Could you call your wife and ask your wife to call her friend and tell her friend to tell her sons to stop pointing their barbecue pots at us? Now, I knew at that point, with 30 guys all looking up like, oh God, the lieutenant's with the right-wing radicals. I knew that I was going to get one reaction or the other. Okay, I'd either get the dog whistle look, like, what is that nut talking about? Or I would see a completely different reaction. And the reaction I got were police officers going, hell yes, high-fiving each other, fist-bumping each other. And the comments I heard from the police officers were, we hate those MFers. They don't communicate with us. They don't work with us. Those sons of bitches, I hope they run them out of here. They're talking about federal officers. And the local St. Louis County sergeants and below had it up to here with the feds. Can you blame them? Okay? And that's the truth. When I got on the ground and the lieutenant went around the car to talk to Captain Hoots, who was kind of running St. Louis County's operation there, the officers came up to me real subtle, and they'd either elbow me or fist bump me or slap me 5. They did, great job, man. I'm so glad you outed those jerks. Now, they used other words too, but I don't want to put that on camera. But they were obviously not happy. They were extraordinarily pleased that we outed the federal sniper team that didn't even tell anyone where they were deploying. Now, when you've got Highway Patrol, National Guard, St. Louis County, 2 to 3 men from all the small departments up there trying to help, how do you not communicate you have men with rifles looking out the windows?